And welcome to the 2D podcast. If you're catching us via the podcast, remember we stream live. You can catch us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter. It's all right there. A lot to get to today here on the 2D podcast. We'll talk about the 49ers. How impressed should we all be with their performance against the Philadelphia Eagles? Are the Eagles' defensive problems for real and something that's going to cost them a championship? The Chiefs, have they blown their shot at the top seed in the AFC? Is Jordan Love going to be a franchise quarterback, one of the best defenses in the NFL? He carved him up pretty good on Sunday Night Football. Dak and Purdy, is it a two-horse race for the MVP? Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Indy, which one of them can hold on to playoff spots in the AFC? Trevor Lawrence went down to the Jags, done. The Bengals, are they rising from the dead? Are they still going to make the playoffs? How about the backup quarterbacks? A lot of talk about teams not spending on them. How important are they? Is there any way Ron Rivera survives in Washington? And who else will be out? We talk about it all, plus what to look for in Week 14 right now on the 2 Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the 2 Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. 2 Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. 2 Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the 2 Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And welcome. We are proudly brought to you, as you heard, by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, talking NFL football. It's what we do here on the 2 Deep Podcast. Jeff, let's talk about what they did this weekend, they being the San Francisco 49ers. Dominant performance. Do we finally have, Eric coined the term a number of years ago, their Super Bowl to lose? Got a couple of different teams, a number of different teams be the hot flavor of the month. Are the Niners proving that this is their Super Bowl to lose after that performance?
It feels that way. I mean, I don't think you can argue that they're the best team in football. They're the most complete team. They got the most weapons. Their quarterback, even though some people – it's not the flavor for some people when it comes to MVP voting, but he's definitely playing at a high level. He's got the numbers, support being in that conversation, and they got a lot on defense. I mean, look, when you're able to go add, Randy Gregory and Chase Young to your defensive line, that helps a lot. But they've had some impressive wins. When you go into Philadelphia and you beat up on a team that many people thought was the best team in football, that had beaten some really good teams in Buffalo and Kansas City and the Cowboys before that, it says something. Look, they went to Jacksonville after their bye week and won 34-3. They beat the Cowboys. Every time they've had to answer the bell outside of that 3-game losing streak, which had a lot to do with guys getting banged up, they've done that. And so, yeah, I mean, when they're right, I don't think anybody's beating this team.
49ers, the best team in the NFL. Is it conclusive now? Do we have enough precincts reporting in, Eric, to say that with confidence?
I mean, assuming everybody stays healthy, they are the best team in the NFL. I think the problem is we know that doesn't sustain itself. When Deebo Samuel is out, when Trent Williams is banged up, when Christian McCaffrey had, the oblique injury, they lost 3 straight games. They lost to Minnesota and Kirk Cousins in Minnesota on Monday Night Football. They lost to Phillip Walker and the Cleveland Browns, and they got their asses kicked by Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So, this is not a team without flaws. But I think when they're healthy, it's really hard to beat them, and they do a really good job. Like the Eagles, you guys read Moneyball. Billy Beane was like, "My shit doesn't work in the playoffs." The Eagles kind of showed the whole, Moneyball limitations in football where they're going premium position in the draft. Like, let's take a Georgia defensive lineman every pick in the draft for 2 years. Let's get, Darius Slay, great corner. Let's get wide receivers. They used a first round pick on wide receivers for 3 straight years, et cetera, et cetera. That Moneyball approach causes you to go with, off the street guys at running back and off the street guys at safety and linebacker. And funny, the 49ers offense attacks those positions ruthlessly. So when you come into a game with something named Caden Ellis and Nicholas Morrow at linebacker, you are going to get slayed, even though that approach wins like 12, 13 games a year. So the Niners are very well positioned to take advantage of the smart teams in the NFC, like Dallas, like Philadelphia, like Detroit. And I think as such, they're the favorites, at least in that conference and probably in the whole NFL.
Yeah, I think I love all the talent around there. And if Brock Purdy is going to be an MVP caliber quarterback, then what are they missing, right? They're the perfect scenario, Jeff. We talk about it all the time, the rookie quarterback contract. If you look around for it, Eric called for Philadelphia last year to be in the Super Bowl because he said, hey, Jalen Hurts, rookie contract, lots of talent. This looks like the same formula that the Eagles used, just a little bit of experience now under Brock Purdy's belt.
Yeah, and look, they got lucky to get him. I was late to this party. I thought he would turn to a pumpkin by now, and he hasn't. I thought he turned to a pumpkin by the end of last year, and the injury was a factor in that. But he continues to do what Kyle Shanahan needs him to do. And I was talking to a personnel guy about him earlier this season, and he made a good point. He said he's pretty much Kirk Cousins, and when Kirk Cousins is cheap, it's a pretty good deal. The problem is when it's expensive, it's not so great of a deal. But he's got the mobility. He's got the savvy. Yeah, I mean, those 3 games when they were losing did expose some of his flaws. But again, he was never advertised as the perfect quarterback. He's advertised as the guy who gets the ball into the hands of the playmakers. And again, when you saw that game against Philadelphia, and you saw what Debo especially was like when he's really focused and healthy, I mean, it was a monster. And so, I mean, it's just, I think people don't give him enough credit because when they played the Jaguars, they played the Cowboys and the Eagles, he had 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, that stuff wins you championships.
Yeah. And Eric, when they've had problems, we see that Trent Williams is down, the injury thing, that's been the key for the 49ers, right? When they're healthy, that roster is great. We mentioned however good Brock Purdy is, he's good enough to win with their roster if it's healthy. Health has been the question for them for several years now.
Yeah, and that's always like even down to Garoppolo in the conference title game 2 years ago with the bad thumb and the bad shoulder, and then last year obviously with Purdy, getting hurt in the playoffs when they were kind of humming. Who knows about defensively? Like, well, how long is Nick Bosa going to stay healthy? They already lost Talanoa Hufanga at safety, who's one of the best players at that position in all of football. He's out for the year. Ward and they've been mostly healthy, but their defense, they build the entire airplane and coverage around odd coverages where Fred Warner can get to spots that most linebackers can't. What happens? We've seen the Chargers. They built the whole thing around Derwin James. When Derwin James gets hurt, the whole thing's screwed. That's where I get worried about the Niners is that when your whole your whole offense is built around the tight end as the pivot player, and then he gets injured, what happens, right? Your whole defense is built around a 1-out-of-1 middle linebacker. What happens? When everything's humming, it's perfect, right? They are the favorite. They should be the favorite. But if I had to bet on them versus the field, I think any really smart person would take the field right now.
Well, you take the field against any team, right?
You take the field against any team until the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about what this means for Philadelphia. Jeff, how much do you back up the bus on your confidence in how far the Eagles can go?
Well, I mean, look, I think we all know they've been able to overcome some challenges this year on defense. And Shaquille Leonard's not going to change that. I mean, it's a big name guy coming in, but he's not the guy. He was an all-pro linebacker with the Colts. The pass defense has been an issue all season long, and they've still, you saw it against the Niners. They don't have the depth of talent back there. They're very vanilla in how they attack people. And so if you're going to be that vanilla, your pass rush has to be dominant. And when their pass rush is not dominant, it shows up big time the other way. I mean, Mac Jones has been benched 4 times, 2 for 300 yards against this team. And so I think a lot of what they've been able to do is obscure that fact with Jalen Hurts, clutch play, big time offense, Sirianni with the charisma and all the histrionics on the sideline. But it's just, that's not the same defense that was out there last year. That was a big part of what they did. And so, yeah, I mean, and they face some really good quarterbacks, Dak, Mahomes, Josh Allen, obviously Purdy this past year. Now I gotta go back and see Dak again. And I'm telling you right now, I'm taking the Cowboys all day long in that game, based on how Dak's playing, based on how that defense has looked.
CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the NFL right now.
Yeah. I mean, they've given up 45 points the last 2 games. They've given up 42 and then 34 to the Bills. I mean, they're going in the wrong direction.
Well, this is like the whole thing, like Petro, where we talk about 1-score games, right? This Eagles team has trailed at halftime 5 consecutive games, right? They needed overtime they needed a 59-yard field goal in a monsoon to beat the Bills, right? They needed Marquez Valdez. Like, now, again, I think any team would take even money on MVS dropping that pass, but they needed MVS to drop that pass. This team, like, this is one of those teams where a lot of people say, well, look, then they say the opposite thing about the Bills, the Chiefs opponent this week, but it's like the great teams win those games. It's like, no, when you're living on the edge and a team comes in, and I agree with Jeff, this Dallas is favored by 3.5 this week. And that's no mistake. Dallas is, you grade out the players, Dallas is better than Philadelphia. And if Dallas doesn't step on their own junk 3 times in the red zone in that first game, they're winning that division right now, right? So this is the Philadelphia Eagles are kind of a lemon right now.
Yeah, I think they want to get a win against Dallas and get going back in the right direction. I do agree that there's kind of some momentum going the wrong way. They were a dog at home against the Niners. I wanted to believe that was just everybody wanting the Eagles to be down, but they were down, clearly. That was a problem. Listen, with free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews, plus every project coming with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete make all your parking problems go away. They've been making them disappear since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Jeff, you mentioned the Chiefs in there. What does that say about the Chiefs that they couldn't beat this Eagle team that now seems to be struggling, and everybody, you included, likes the Cowboys to get a win against them? They just fell to a Packer team. They've lost to 3 NFC teams. Was that it? Did they squander their chance at being the number 1 seed, or does a more difficult schedule, significantly more difficult schedule for the Ravens mean, and some tough games still for the Dolphins, mean that they're still very much in the mix for that 1 seed?
They're in the mix. I wouldn't say very much. I think the Buffalo game I think they're going to lose that game. And I think the Bengals game became a lot more intriguing based on how Jake Browning played last night against Jacksonville. And so they have a good chance of coming here still being in playoff contention, which if a week ago I would have said, by the time they get here, they're probably going to be 7-8 and, trending out. And now they might be 9-6. 8-7 and still trying to hold on to hope. So I think the Chiefs, they got 2 tough games with those teams coming in. And then, I think Baltimore and Miami, I think Miami's got the inside track right now because they got a couple winnable games here with the Titans and the Jets. And by the time you get to 11-3, you can start smelling that bye if you're them. And you know what that bye could mean to them, especially being in South Florida playing football, meaningful football games in January. So I'd probably bet on the Dolphins, Ravens first, and then the Chiefs after that.
I do agree. When you play somebody is important. And so if they can pile up some wins and really start feeling confident, the Dolphins I'm talking about here, Titans, Jets, they figured to pile up those. But then Cowboys at Ravens, Bills. If the Bills are a challenge for Kansas City, they're a challenge for Miami, right?
Yep.
Eric, what do you think of how much this is schedule driven? Are the Chiefs now zero margin for error for that 1 seed?
I mean, anytime like the Ravens and Dolphins play each other, so like one of those teams is losing that game. The Ravens also get, I believe, San Francisco, which again, like we just talked about how great they are. The Ravens are also, and I both the and again, I'm not trying to.
I've got it right here: Rams at Jags at Niners, Dolphins, Steelers.
Yeah, and the Jags might not be as hard because of no Lawrence, possibly, but like, but the Steelers, I mean, the Steelers already beat them. I think that those two teams should be favored against the Chiefs and especially collectively, of course. I do think the Chiefs maybe have one more loss if they want to be the 1 seed. The Dolphins have a tough schedule the last 3 games of the year where they have Dallas, they have Baltimore, and then they have a Bills team that I think will be playing for a playoff spot in Week 17, a team that already thrashed them. So no, I think and both of those teams have had injuries to their quarterback the last 2 years that have hurt them. So the Chiefs should not be favored for that 1 seed, but they're very far from eliminated from it. And they don't have to win out. I don't think that they have to win out for it.
I like this. How about it, Red says, what record do you need for the number 1 seed?
13-4. I think 13-4 gets you there.
You think it'll get it, but
12-5.
12-5, so we'll have some kind of tiebreaker that ends up determining who gets that bye.
They have the tiebreaker over the Dolphins. They have the tiebreaker over the Jags.
They being
the Chiefs.
Okay.
Baltimore has a tough schedule. I mean, and Baltimore gets beat up this time of year. Like, they're still one of the worst teams at preventing injuries. So, like, I think it opens up well for Kansas City, frankly.
All right, so tell me, let's go around the board here. Then, what are the 1 seed right now is the Miami Dolphins? What do they finish? What's their record, Jeff?
I'll go 12-5.
Okay, Eric.
I agree. I think they win 1 out of the 3 games between the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills.
Okay, I'll go 12-5 as well. What do the Ravens go?
I think they're 13-4. I just killed them. I said that to Dolphins. Now I'm leaning Ravens 13-4.
Okay.
I think they split those. I think they only have 2 tough games in my mind. It's the Cowboys. Excuse me. It's the Niners. And what's the other one?
At Niners and home for Dolphins.
Home for Dolphins. Those are the 2 tough games. They'll beat the Jaguars and the Steelers. I think they split those 2. Get 13-4.
Eric.
I don't. I think it's 12-5. Rams are not.
So they lose to who?
I mean, well, the Rams are not a cupcake. They're 6-6. Sean McVay is the coach of the year in the NFL right now. If you had to grade it out,
have you seen what the Ravens have done to NFC teams?
I have, but like, I mean, I don't. I think the Rams are still. I mean, the Rams are a 7-point dog in that game. Like, I think that's fair. So they probably have like a 25% chance of winning that game. The Jaguars, Lawrence will probably play by then, and the Jaguars are not a terrible team. The Niners are better than the Ravens, and the Dolphins that's probably a coin flip game in Baltimore. And then the Steelers, like, you guys think, like, we're going to be, me and Soren, Chiefs fans, we're going to be pom-pomming the Steelers Week 18, and that team, beat the Ravens.
Miss Trubisky? You bet you let it ride on Miss Trubisky?
I mean, Mitch Trubisky's better than Kenny Pickett.
Well, I think we know they'll probably, in all likelihood, they'll enter the fourth quarter in the midst of some muddy rock fight.
It'll be 13-7, and then they'll lose 14-13, and we'll all wonder how the heck that happened. And it's like, this happened. The Ravens bleep around and find out 4 times a year. They've done it 3 times this year already. So we'll get one more there, and they'll lose fair and square to either the Niners or the Dolphins or both.
All right, Jacksonville Jaguars at Browns, Ravens, at Bucks, Panthers, at Titans. What do the Jaguars finish, Jeff?
I think it depends on how healthy Lawrence is. I think if he's
it's not going to be very good based upon how he walked off the field. He may limp around out there, but I think you're expecting at best a Patrick Mahomes limping through the playoff type show.
Yeah, I mean, if he's able to come back and be decent, they're probably 13-4 based on who they got to play. But if he's banged up, I'm thinking 12-5.
Well, they've already got 4 losses, and they've
Yeah.
got the Ravens. Do you have them losing to the
Oh, they
Ravens?
got the Ravens still? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, one
12-5 then.
more time. At Browns, Ravens, at Bucks, Panthers, at Titans.
Yeah. Yeah, Ravens beat them. So 12-5.
Yeah, 12-5. I mean, I could see them getting tripped up. I don't know that they're necessarily ready for primetime players yet, to where they couldn't get tripped up along the way. Not that, nor is anybody. It's the NFL. And then the last one of the probable division winners, Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, you didn't ask me my opinion on the Jags.
Well, what do you got the Jags at? I'm sorry, Eric. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, look, they just lost to Jake Browning at home, so the Browns game is not a lock. I think you're talking about an 11-6 team, the Ravens or the Jags.
Okay. And then what are the Chiefs, Jeff?
Well, they lose to Buffalo, so that gives them 5 losses. The wild card is the Bengals game. If Jake Browning shows up doing what he did against Jacksonville, I think they lose that game too. If he comes back to earth and they win, I put him at 12-5.
12-5. Okay. Yeah. 12-5, 11. Which is more likely, Eric? What do you got the Chiefs at? And then tell me what's more like. I assume you're going to say.
I like the way that Sam McDowell put it. I think 11-6 is more likely than 13-4.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
I agree with that. I think 12-5 is the most likely outcome. I don't know which of the Bills and the Chargers games they lose, but I think they lose one of them. They are not losing to the stupid Bengals with Jake Browning.
That's say that now.
I mean, I look, if they lose to Jake Browning, we might as well. It's Petro. It's been fun. I got to see it 4 straight Januaries. It's not
Jake Browning scored 34 points in Jacksonville, and Patrick Mahomes got 17.
Yeah, I mean it's a thing. I mean, thing. The Bengals are more than Joe Burrow. I mean, I think it's an uphill climb for them. We'll get to them in a minute, but
their defense.
Let's talk about them right now. Are the Bengals still a playoff team, Jeff?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think you win that game in that fashion. I mean, I think most people probably turn that game on if they watched it at all, thinking, "Oh, this is the nail in the coffin for the Bengals." And then all of a sudden it's 14-7. It's like, oh, let's see what happens. Oh, it's like 14-14. Oh, all of a sudden now Jamar Chase is running down the field with a 75-yard touchdown pass. And it's like, what's going on here? And so it's okay to give the Bengals the respect of a team that's been in the AFC Championship last couple of years and played in the Super Bowl. They got some guys over there who know how to win some games. And you look at their schedule the next 3 weeks: Colts, Vikings, and I think what's the third one in there? Is it the Colts, Vikings, and there's a third one in there. It's 3 straight backup quarterbacks they're going to see. The way their backup quarterback played, I'll take him over the 3 guys they got to face. Minnesota, right?
For the record, the Bengals schedule here moving forward: Colts, Vikings, at Steelers, at Chiefs, Browns.
Yeah. So very real possibility they come into Arrowhead at 9-6, looking to get a wild card spot.
Yeah. Are you a believer in the Bengals? Are you a believer in their quarterback, Eric?
No.
None whatsoever.
The sun shines on a dog's ass every once in a while, as you would say. Like, no.
That's sun shining on a dog's ass, 85% completion
beat
percentage.
out Sean Mannion in Minnesota. He stinks. That was a pumpkin, and this is illustrative for the Chiefs fans who are like, "Oh my God, this defense is terrible after one bad game against Jordan Love." Like, the Jags have a pretty good defense too, and they had just a crappy night. They got caught off guard. No, like, we've seen pop-up backup quarterback games. Like, Mike White had like a 500-yard game against the Bengals the year the Bengals went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Like, this, no. Yeah. The Bengals haven't figured anything out.
Yeah. And Brock Purdy won what? It's won what? How many games in his career?
I mean, guys, Brock Purdy has one of the best offensive designers, not best head coaches, but one of the best offensive designers in NFL history. And I love Zach Taylor to death. I think he's done a good job with that franchise, but Zach Taylor is not Kyle Shanahan.
I don't know. I think he's pretty good.
I do too.
I like him a lot. And I'm with you. The 354 yards, 32 of 37, I think speaks a little bit anomaly-ish. But the 354 is real. One touchdown makes me a little bit nervous, but I like the firepower around him, and some of that's getting healthy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I look. The defense is the bigger question mark for them. You know, will they be able to stop people, or is he going to have to play this kind of game every time? He can't do that. But I mean, I think that isn't that what we're talking about here about like the way the AFC playoff stacks up right now. I mean, Pittsburgh 7-5, Cleveland 7-5, Indianapolis 7-5. That's your 5, 6, and 7. Those are your 3 wild cards right now. Right on their heels, 7-5 Houston, 6-6 Denver, 6-6 Cincinnati, 6-6 Buffalo, and then 5-7 Chargers. If you want to dream a dream, for the Bolts, but you know the teams that are supposed to be there are chasing. The teams that are like, do you believe in any of the Colts, Steelers, or Browns?
No.
None
Maybe the
of-
coaches.
none of them
Has
make
an elite defense, like one of the best in the modern NFL. So at least they have that. And if Flacco can like just kind of keep the thing on the tracks, I think they'll be dangerous, right?
I mean, you asking a question or making a point?
You guys if we've been ripping on the Chiefs for 2 shows now. If the Chiefs had to play the Browns defense, like I wouldn't enjoy
Well, you got to
that.
play the whole team, not just the defense.
Yeah, but that team has not a great offensive line anymore because a lot of injuries. But Amari Cooper, David Njoku, even that Ford kid from Cincy's not having a great year, but like they're not completely void of talent on offense. And if Flacco literally can just get the ball on the green, they're okay. And they have a great coach.
I understand that you're saying
Cleveland's live.
I understand that you're saying this in as a compliment to the defense, that the foundation of what you're saying is great defense. But it is kind of odd to see, Browning just poo-pooed with the Bengals. And then
Joe Flacco, here it comes.
Yeah, Joe Flacco is going to swing it around the yard. But I'm with I listen, I have no idea who's going to make it, right? Like out of that mix.
Really?
I think the Bills will get there. I don't think the Bengals will. I think they'll come up short. If they do, they get there on a tiebreaker. I never like betting against Mike Tomlin. That's a scary proposition. I don't think the Texans are ready to get it done. I can't believe in Gardner. Like, I would guess the Browns would be the one of those 3, but maybe the Steelers. But the quarterback play is so bad right now in that spot. Like, I don't know how you get excited for any one of those 3 teams.
Well,
Gardner Minshew's the best quarterback out of that bunch.
Yeah. And that's why I would say I would put more faith in starting quarterbacks who are playing meaningful games and backups who are trying to hold on and keep hope alive.
What do you guys take of Minshew then? Because I think Minshew has been phenomenal for his role.
He's played well.
And he's not a great quarterback, but he's handled the job of backup quarterback about as well as anybody has in a long time. And I think Shane Steichen does a pretty good job. And that Colts defense, can we go around the room and name 4 starters on that defense? Like, you used to be able to say Darius Leonard, but he's out.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like,
they're not good defensively. But they also got 2 block punts.
They're not good roster-wise, but they're well coached, and they have an easy schedule.
Yeah, they also got 2 block punts in that game and that missed extra point.
I'm not big on giving the Coach of the Year award to somebody who just outperformed bad expectations, right? Like that's a pet peeve of mine that anyone who's ever heard me in broadcasting knows that that's the way I view it. But that's a pretty damn good coaching job in Indianapolis. Like,
he's doing a great job.
Quarterbacks that couldn't be more different than each other, right? You have the big, physical, great arm like Zip, and you have the little guy who was once on the PFF forecast with me and George, who can't throw at 40 miles an hour. Like, the fact that he's been – and your starting running back, Jonathan Taylor, the guy that you paid $15 million a year to, has been out for a half of the season. Your offensive line is, not – like, they turned Bernard Raymond into an all-pro left tackle.
I mean, are we sleeping on the Steelers? I mean, I think we look at everybody else's record and we go, well, we see that the Ravens play the Steelers and we think the Steelers have a tough go of it. Here's what it is. Patriots at Colts can handle their own business right there. Bengals, again, with whatever that Bengals quarterback is, at Seattle, free fall going on right now with the Seattle Seahawks, and then at Ravens. I mean, what are we bringing them home at?
Yeah, the part you're missing is the 24-10 loss to a 3-win Arizona Cardinals team 2 days ago.
But
at home.
But does that define? I mean, I guess to some degree, the 24-9 loss that Kansas City had to Denver has been an indicator that they have issues ever since, even though they handled the Raiders. Yes, but you know, I do understand that, but they've got a 17-10 win against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Then that's the sun shining on a dog's ass. It'll shine on the right cheek, shine on the right cheek one time. It'll shine on the left cheek other times. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But that's a pretty easy schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who already are the game up on all the what most people would say are the would-be contenders.
I think they're probably going to finish 8. I want to say they'll be 9-8 since Mike Tomlin keep a streak alive.
Mike Tomlin special.
Yeah, yeah, but that's not going to get them into the playoffs this year.
No, and at some point they've got to figure out the quarterback position. I mean that's going to be because the 9-8 is going to start to get old and it's going to start to get stale in the locker room. And then you get kind of like, okay, it's been a great run, but it's kind of like Andy Reid wrapping up with the Philadelphia Eagles. We need a new voice and you need a new team, right? Like that. If they don't get the quarterback position fixed, like I talk with people in Pittsburgh and they're like, well, he isn't going to leave because he knows how great this organization is to work for. But like at some point you got to take a step up. And I don't think it's going to happen until they take a step up at quarterback.
No. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, I don't like them just because I think they've been cheating death all season long. And part of that's his coaching, part of that's their culture. I just can't trust a team like that it was already horrible offensively playing with their second string quarterback. It's just a recipe for, again, I think all three of those teams are not going to be there at the end. I think Stroud's going to get hot. I think Denver's going to be there. And I think Buffalo is going to make a run.
I like this. First of all, Scott says Steelers Pats must watch TV. Steven says, you see the plus minus on that total points? Yeah. 30. Steelers Pats 30 is the over.
Army Navy's 27.5.
It's what?
Army Navy's 27.5.
And this is 30.
This is close, yeah.
You see where we're at when it comes to that.
There's like 5 games this week that are below 35.
How do you handle the backup quarterback, Eric? I mean, this is the thing. I'm hearing people complaining that teams don't have a quality backup quarterback. First of all, I always love the conversation about backup quarterbacks when you look around and there's 10 starting quarterbacks that everybody wants replaced, but somehow there are these badass backups that everybody ought to have ready to lock and load. There seems to be a major disconnect there, but are there guys that warrant real investments as backup quarterbacks?
I think there are some, and if you have, like Gardner Minshew was certainly, like you looked at the play type for Anthony Richardson and you were like, that's a guy that's going to get hurt. I think the way you handle it, and I know that people aren't ready for this, but like you handle it by taking 2 guys high because those guys get hurt. Bryce Young's been hurt this year. He's missed a game or 2. Anthony Richardson's missed time. And Washington doesn't get enough credit for this, but when you take RG3, you take Kirk Cousins. And the great part about that Washington draft is Kirk was the second pick. They traded all the other picks to move up to get RG3. If you have a young quarterback, especially, you have to invest in backup because the young quarterbacks are not good enough at the mental part of the game to spend some of their energy thinking about protecting themselves. One of the reasons Brady, Manning, none of those guys ever got hurt is they had the mental part of the game mastered so much that they could protect themselves in the pocket with part of their brain. You have to invest in it. I think like the issue is going to be just don't have high expectations. Nick Foles, great backup quarterback. Once you start Nick Foles, it's going to be a disaster. Sam Howell is going to be a great backup quarterback in the NFL. Once you start him, it's going to be a disaster. Same thing with Taylor Heineke. Just have realistic expectations, but don't have a backup quarterback who has no freaking chance, like Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson or somebody like that. Like there's got to be a threshold of like, can this guy be frisky for a game? And I actually think that is a fairly low bar. Like Matt Moore clears that bar. And then if he goes in, you get the women and children out of the first 3 rows, and that's Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, guys like that.
Look, I'm not going to say Sam Howell is God's gift to quarterback, but you're awfully down on.
I was going to say
Sam Howell's leading the NFL in interceptions thrown and sacks taken. He sucks.
I don't like the sacks taken, and it means he can't get the ball out and he holds it too long. And
he's got a horrible offensive line.
Yeah.
Well, no, his pressure to sack ratio has been a top 5 or bottom 5, depending on how you say it, since he was at UNC. Like when he had Diami Brown and Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, he still was taking a
so
sack.
He didn't have a horrible offensive line. Two things can be true.
I think it's awfully early in the guy's career. None of us are saying, yeah, put him up there in the MVP conversation. But as for a first-year starter with a flawed everything going on there in Washington, he's had some moments. I mean, he's not afraid to push the ball down the field.
He's a great backup quarterback. He's Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he's Jameis Winston.
I think he's more Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Who's it? I mean, and when teams tried to start Ryan Fitzpatrick, what happened?
He took a couple of them to playoffs.
No, he didn't. Ryan Fitzpatrick never played a playoff game in the NFL.
Oh, the Jets were 10-6. That's the best.
Yeah, the one, but then he melted down against Rex Ryan in Week 17, like every bad quarterback.
But he started a lot.
He started a lot. He shouldn't have, but he did.
He did. Well, that's the point. Like, so I come back around to why is everybody bitching that teams don't have better backup quarterbacks?
Well, so what your biggest gripe, which is 100% true, Petro, is there are not 32 starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So like Sam Howell starting because he's a top 32 quarterback in the league, but he's a backup quarterback. That is the epidemic in the NFL right now. And that's why when a guy like Jordan Love goes and beats the Chiefs, I'm sad because I'm a Chiefs fan, but I'm happy because there looks like there's actually a real quarterback in Green Bay. Like, let's add one to the list of real quarterbacks in the NFL, of which there are like a dozen.
Sam Howell couldn't turn out to be Kirk Cousins.
I mean, look, like you frame this totally different than I do. You're like, how do you know so fast that he's not any good? My question is he's a 5th round pick. How do you know
Kirk Cousins was a 4th?
Right, and it took Kirk Cousins like 5 years to be any good. How do you know so fast that Sam Howell isn't just another 5th round pick? Just because Washington bailed on this season and started him the whole game?
I don't understand. No. I mean, yes, he has 14 interceptions. He has 18 touchdowns. I mean, 3rd year in Washington, in 6 games, Kirk Cousins had 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Howell looks kind of Cousins-ish to me, like the early Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think you got to throw all the other 4th round picks in the pile and be like, how many 4th and 5th round picks, and be like, how many of these worked out? And you're going to say, oh, cool, Dak. Oh, cool, Kirk Cousins. And then you're going to look at like 100 other guys and be like, Sam Howell's got a 2% chance of succeeding. And I'm going to buy the other side.
Okay.
But that doesn't make him bad, though.
I don't think I'm not saying he's bad.
You just said he's bad.
I did say he sucked. Okay, but let's put it this way. I retain the right to reassess. He's a great backup quarterback. If you choose him, if you out of your own free will choose for him to be your starting quarterback in the NFL, you will suck.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Tell me, is Jordan Love a franchise quarterback?
I'm writing about it for Sumer Sports. You got to sumersports.com. Go to the website over the next few days. It's an interesting question.
Well,
it's a yes or no answer.
Here's my question. So I think he is. I think he's got top 6 to 8 potential in the NFL. But my question is, what do you do with his contract if you're the Packers?
Oh, that's why somebody in Green Bay has to decide that, right? And then you got to sit down with him and you got to talk about what is it he's going to ask for. Because what will he get on the open market? Like, do you really go into a lame duck season? I know he signed for one more year in Green Bay, but at a number that's way low. And if he starts next season, you're not signing him, because one of two things happens. He sucks, he disappoints, and you don't want to sign him, right? Or he plays well and he's going to the free agent market or forcing you to put the franchise tag on him, right? So I don't think you want to be in that spot. The best economic decision for the Packers, good or bad, will be to make a decision. He's ours and we're signing him, or we walk. What would be your analysis, and what would you tell the Packers general manager he should do?
I would take him let's see. I mean, we got 5 more games to see what they do. I think they're going to be a playoff team. If they're a playoff team and he keeps trending in the right direction, you sign him to a deal that is advantageous to both sides. He's getting paid based off potential. You're getting a little more from him in terms of potential and playability, all that stuff. I'm trying to think of a contract that compares to that's been signed recently.
I mean, that contract.
I guess. What's that?
So the problem is like the best contract type for him would be like Geno Smith's contract.
Yeah, I was thinking more like somewhere like below Daniel Jones.
Well,
somewhere
the
closer
problem
to that.
is it's not. I mean, you're starting at Daniel Jones. That's what makes this so hard. Is you're starting at Daniel Jones from a conversation standpoint, because you declined his 5th-year option, more or less, same as Daniel Jones, right? Yeah. Daniel Jones, to Jeff's point, is going to take them to the playoffs, might even win a game, right? By the way, I think it's funny, the Lions' last home playoff game was Brett Favre's first career playoff start. Their next home playoff game might be Jordan Love's first playoff start. But and so the conversation starts at 42 million, right? Like, basically Daniel Jones's contract plus inflation. Soren, are you signing Jordan Love to 42 million a year?
Well, let me first take an opportunity to tell you, I think a lot more the way you do about Jordan Love after last week. I said I wanted to see him do something against a good pass defense. You said he was playing well. You expected him to play well against Kansas City, and he did. So let me give props where they're due. You called that. So and Jeff was more on the Jordan Love bandwagon, certainly not to the degree that you were, with wearing a cheese head and waving a Packer flag about it. You were you sounded actually more all in last week about Jordan Love than you do this week. But let me give props to you, because he played great. I mean, he played very well in that game against a defense that's been very good for most of the year. So I think that's important to note. He does have 10 picks. And we're going to talk about 14 picks for Howell, by the way, in 13 games. In 12 games, Love has 10 picks. So he's not that far behind when it comes to that category. What he doesn't do, though, is take as many sacks. He's only given up 24 sacks. And I think that's one of the things. He can get the ball out. Am I ready to give him Daniel Jones? More so, I'm ready to give him, because he's got 22 touchdowns right now. And Daniel Jones had 15 last year when they gave him 45 million.
That's what I'm thinking.
So, yeah, from that standpoint, now, if I'm his agent, I'm like, no, this is what it takes. You're going to have to give 45, because that's my point. If you don't, you're going to have to franchise him and dance the Dak dance, because he's going to ask for it. And his agent's going to tell you he'll get it on the open market. And so would you give him the franchise? What's the franchise number going to be?
Oh, yeah, it's like the average of the top 5. It's probably at that point 50.
Yeah. So are you going to do that 1 year at a time, or are you going to try to buy yourself some more cheap years and backload the contract?
Well, I think the hard part, if you look so the Packers are one of the youngest teams in the NFL, but that's not necessarily by choice. It's out of necessity. And usually, I mean, we've seen it in Kansas City. Tyreek Hill goes to a team with a rookie contract. You can pay him all the monies. But this team right now they have some, but David Bakhtiari is a 19 million dead cap hit if they cut him next year. $40 million cap number. Kenny Clark is $27 million cap number, 24 dead if they were to cut him. Rashawn Gary just, Jeff, Blue, all the stuff. Rashawn Gary has a 27 dead if they cut him. So he's at 15. like Jair Alexander at 17, 12 dead if you cut him. This is a weird situation where they don't. On the positive side, Jordan Love is developed next to receivers that none of them make any money. The negative part is, so that's good. But the negative part is you've already used up his cheap years. So when you give him the $40 million guaranteed, you might get a Giant situation where it's like, okay, we gave all of our money to Daniel Jones. What did it cost? Everything. That team stinks. So like that it's such a tough decision. Like I agree with Jeff. I think you gotta, the one thing that I would say about pushing it off, or maybe, kind of giving him contracts that kind of are like a simulated franchise tag is, the cap situation does get better over time, right? Like, and maybe that is, you're just buying yourself time, because unfortunately the Aaron Rodgers all-in seasons have left them holding the bag on guys like Clark and Bakhtiari and stuff like that, where their cap situation isn't the greatest. It will be better in a couple of years.
But don't you think they have to get him signed before Trevor Lawrence gets a deal or Tua gets a deal? I think that's the timing of it is critical for them to make it work financially.
I
not
think
be too deep in.
I think Jeff makes a great point. I think the best case scenario for the Packers is to go all in on the guy, to go all in right now first as fast as possible, and to get the deal done immediately, so that, yes, they don't have to react to more market shifts. Because I think right now you could sell him on, listen, we can dance this dance, and maybe you're going to go in free agency, and maybe you get a bunch of money to go play for the Commanders and live that lifestyle. Good luck. You don't know where you're going to land. You have a home here. Packers fans are warming to you. They were loving him some Jordan Love. I had a guy screaming in my face about Jordan Love being the better quarterback when I was up there. If you can get him in there and get him and give him the big signing bonus and, backload some money to plan to renegotiate in 3 or 4 years, and add to it right now, I think you do it. I mean, listen, you can talk about all the receiver problems Kansas City has. He looks pretty good with a bunch of young pups.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've come a long way in seeing him get that done.
I think, yeah. And the other parties you point to it, you think like, look how it worked out for Brock Osweiler, right? When he went out there and got a couple extra $1 million and now Denver isn't much better either. But like Brock Osweiler tried to screw us and tried to add a few extra million. We've said, look, Trevor Simeon's not all that much worse than you. And, you went out there and got yours, and you came back in a year, right? So, like, there is some precedent for this, like Scott Mitchell and, like, all that, they can go out there and get theirs, but, we developed you.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be Kirk Cousins either, right? You don't want to have that situation where you're just playing this game back and forth. We don't believe in you. You got to show us, and then we'll franchise you. It's just, after going through what they went through with Aaron Rodgers, they would like to have some stability there. I guarantee you that.
Kirk Cousins, 100 and some
did pretty well financially, though.
Yeah, he ended up doing all right with the Vikings. But I think the one thing is, like, what do you want? I mean, Kirk Cousins is also still somewhat of a lightning rod. You want to be the guy, buy into the franchise, say, I want to be here, I want to be a Packer, and go do that, because you might end up being with the Browns.
Yep.
Right? And maybe that'll end up being a good thing. But you get the Brock Osweiler landing with the Browns thing. That's part of it where it goes south. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems disappear when you know Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Been doing it for about 30 years. Brightly striped lot cuts down on accidents and keeps your parking lot safe as possible. If you own a business, if you manage a business, let Gann Asphalt and Concrete let you focus on that business. Don't worry about liability. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete solve all your parking lot problems. One contractor, all things parking lots. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at gannasphalt.com. Is it Dak versus Purdy for the MVP, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jalen Hurts can get back into it. He's got some big games down the stretch. He's got the big wins already. What Dak doesn't have is that signature win. If Dak beats the Eagles, like, it's his to lose, because he's got the numbers. He's got the platform in Dallas. He's going to be on TV every week moving forward. Got a great narrative behind. We talked about storylines and all that. And then Brock Purdy is just the best quarter. He's the quarterback of the best team. And so it's a lot like the Heisman sometimes, where you look at the team that's undefeated, who's playing quarterback for him. Gina Torretta, here's your Heisman. Yeah, I'm not sitting here saying he should be talked about in the same breath as Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. But again, I think he's like 23-6 touchdown interceptions. He's got 70% completion percentage. I think he got a 148 quarterback rating last week, and that's like the third best game he's had this year. I mean, he's done well. And so, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts losing that game last week cost him dearly in this race.
They're 1-2 in QBR for what that's worth. Brock Purdy followed by Dak Prescott, followed by Josh Allen. That 6-6 record we've talked about is a problem. Followed by Patrick Mahomes, but that's not bad. When Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are looking up at you at any statistic, will this come down to just Purdy versus Prescott?
No, I mean, this sounds silly, but like, I think it's live for people like Mahomes. I think it's live for people like Josh Allen. I think it's live. Like, I'm not as offended by Purdy winning the MVP as a lot of these people are. Like, he's been phenomenal at running that offense. And to Jeff's point, like, Sean Alexander was horrible basically the moment he won that MVP for Seattle. That doesn't mean that he didn't have incredible accomplishments behind Walter Jones and behind Steve Hutchinson and Matt Hasselbeck. Like, we didn't talk about his like viability for that award, even though he was a product of that system. Like, Purdy's executed that offense phenomenally, so he deserves a spot there. I think Dak does as well, but we all know that Dak is a meltdown. He has 3 or 4 meltdowns a year. I think that'll hurt his case. I think Purdy, the Niners have to stay healthy for him to be in that fold. No one was talking about him as an MVP when they lost 3 straight and he was throwing interceptions. So I don't think it's down to those two. I think it's incredibly live. I think there are probably a dozen people who can win this award.
Ron Rivera, dead man walking by all accounts, right? In Washington, we think there's no chance he survives. Who else is going to be ousted? What's it look like? Or who's at least fighting for their job coming down the stretch? Who's out? Who's fighting? Jeff?
Dennis Allen, Brandon Staley is in that group. I would put who else? I think Bill Belichick it'll be something weird, like a trade or some kind of strange deal that gets him out of that situation onto somebody else, but I think he won't be in New England after this season. And Matt Eberflus. So
That's
4.
With the Raiders
4 more.
No, Robert Salah will be back in your mind. Mike Vrabel will be back in your mind.
Yeah, Vrabel's good. Yeah. Salah I think he'll be back. I think he's got a raw deal there and Rodgers getting hurt. They can't hold that against him.
Okay. I mean, it hasn't been pretty without him.
So that's 5 more, right? With Rivera, Staley, Allen, Eberflus, and Belichick moving on.
With a couple already looking, like we mentioned. Brian Dable doesn't get it.
He was the coach of the year last year.
If Pete Carroll keeps free falling,
no.
Okay,
he leaves on his own terms.
Eric, is it whoever wins the NFC South keeps his job and everybody else is out?
I don't think Todd Bowles is out. Like, I think the Bucs have done better than expectations. You looked at like preseason betting odds, like the Panthers were actually above the Bucs, and the Bucs, so no, Todd Bowles has done fine. I mean, not great, but fine. Dennis Allen's the worst coach in the NFL, not named Arthur Smith, and left. So yeah, whichever one of those teams decides not to win that division is going to be fired. Yeah.
I do love this because like Terry's like Arthur Smith. I mean, they're in the playoffs.
Cusp, right? Yeah,
they're playing the home game. Right. I mean, Terry's not wrong to ask that question because if they don't make it, I mean, they're not happy down there in Atlanta. But somebody from that stupid division is going to host a playoff game.
That's why Dennis Allen's out.
Now, then they're going to
lose to the Falcons.
Yeah, they're then going to get their ass kicked by either the Dallas Cowboys or Philadelphia Eagles in the first round of the playoffs, whoever that team is. But I mean, I don't know. Was it Pete Carroll's Marshawn Lynch Seahawks were 7-9 and took out like a 11-win Drew Brees Saints team back in the day, right?
Yep.
So
at that game.
Weirder. Were you really? Weirder things have happened, for sure. Who is the guy? Is there a hot guy to go get right now, Jeff? Are you hearing any name that everybody loves?
Oh, Ben Johnson is probably the hottest name out there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody wants him right now. I mean,
Well, I think Mike McDonald from the Ravens, formerly of he was linebackers coach of the Ravens, then he went to Michigan, was DC, and then came back as DC. I think Mike McDonald's probably has higher stock right now than Ben Johnson. Like interestingly, Detroit's offense isn't as good as it was last year, and they're healthier this year than they were last year. I thought Ben Johnson actually did a better job, all things considered, in 2022. Jeff's right, though. The other one's Brian Flores.
Yeah.
I think this year has really helped him. I mean, that Vikings defense personnel-wise horrendous, and he's made them into a top half of the league unit, top 12 in some cases. So that's another one. The weird one, Jeff, I want your opinion on is Giro Evero. That one's been weird because he's been on two staffs where the head coach has gotten fired, but he's done a pretty good job himself.
Yeah. Jim Harbaugh?
Yep. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Anyone else from college?
No. I mean, there was some talk about Lincoln Riley earlier this year wanting to get out of the USC job, maybe being a candidate for the Chargers, but I don't see that happening.
I think a sneaky one down, probably not this year, but at some point is Sarkisian. I think Sarkisian wants to have an NFL job at some point. And, he had his moments in the NFL, of course. Thomas, my boss, thought he was great as their OC for when they had him. He's kind of like resolved all of his issues with drinking and stuff that got him out of the league in the first place. I think Steve Sarkisian probably will be a head coach in the NFL again. Or
Jeff,
not again, but in the NFL again.
In the NFL. Okay. Jeff, what are you looking at this week? Anything catch your eye here for week 14?
Bills, Chiefs. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit, but I mean, I've been saying it for the last few weeks, the Bills at some point are going to get hot. I think if it's going to happen, it's got to happen this week, coming off a bye, starting this run. If Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, all these guys, they only have so many shots left at trying to do something. We'll find out if they're going to be the 2006 Colts with this game. So very intrigued by that one.
Eric?
Atlanta, Tampa Bay. I mean, now that I live in the South, I've been to, SEC games now. I'm just a different breed. I can't look away from the NFC South. It's like watching a train wreck over and over again. And this week we get a priv, which is Tampa Bay. If Tampa Bay goes to Atlanta, wins, and New Orleans can manage a win as a 4.5 point, although that point spread's going down, favorite against Carolina, that is a 3-way tie in first place in the NFC South at a record of 6-7.
Man, it's unwatchable. Every time I see an NFC South game,
but I live here. Like they're on TV.
Put off.
And if the Saints are playing somebody on the other network, they're on TV too. It's an atrocity.
Yeah,
I think it is a great weekend of football.
It's phenomenal.
So many great games. Colts, Bengals, Jags, Browns, Broncos, Chargers. I mean, there are games that have a lot of meaning. The big ones: Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills. Those are giant games that are out there. You mentioned the NFC South, but I want to see the backup quarterback between Browns and Jags, just to see how they do it. I'm always intrigued how teams can play from behind, but. This has got to be Staley's last stand, and the Chargers are at home against the Broncos. If they can't beat the Broncos at home, like that to me is
might be done.
And, by the way, can I victory lap the Russ take?
In what way?
Everybody was talking about touchdown interception ratio, blah blah blah. I pointed out that he was like throwing for like 112 yards a game and throwing a lot of interceptable balls, and he throws for 186 and 3 interceptions this week. I need to pat myself on the back. I got one right.
Yeah, you did. You got a couple right. You got Jordan Love as well. We'll throw around the love if you want. You got a couple of them. No, but I mean, listen, we're coming down to that time where so many games mean so much. But so will Herbert get it done against the Broncos? Then go ahead and put it out there.
No,
This
Herbert
is your irresistible force
Yeah.
against the immovable object.
No,
because
like
either one of these guys.
this game is going to be 17-16, and so the scores are going to be close. But Herbert is going to go 37 of 54 for 196, and Russell Wilson is going to go 13 of 18 for 196. That's how those.
Who's going to win?
Let's go with Denver.
Okay. All right. I
like Herbert. Herbert is. I go back and like everybody is wrong about Herbert. The people that think he's like the next great quarterback are wrong. People who think he stinks are wrong. His own coaches are wrong about him. It's ridiculous.
Okay. There we have it. Listen, if you own a business, if you run a business, make sure that you take care of your customers, your clients, leave a great first and last impression. Nobody needs to get sideswiped by somebody backing out of a parking lot that doesn't have the stripes put on it. Gann Asphalt and Concrete has been solving any and all parking lot problems since 1994. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Free consultations, no commissions. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Two Deep NFL Podcast.